In the beginning of this conversation, you were saying that you are aware of abductions still happening today.
Yeah.
Do you think
Nothing's changed.
Do you think any of the abductions that are happening today are anything similar to what the stuff that you were experiencing was? Like with extracting bodily fluids from people and like the same sort of like reproduction experiments?
Yeah.
Very similar.
Who is putting out that dialogue that this is changed?
Nobody's putting out the dialogue. That's the thing.
Right. Nobody's
putting out anything about something that's anything new that's happened. At least that I've seen.
Maybe that's the way they want to portray it, so people will adjust to it and not realize that there's this other aspect. Maybe
I just haven't seen anything anywhere or heard anything anywhere of anyone new talking about this stuff happening. And I don't know if that's just because that, I don't know if the reason we only hear about stuff that happened 20 years ago is because that's like naturally how long it takes somebody to be comfortable to talk about this stuff, or if people are just choosing not to talk about it, or if it's being suppressed or whatever.
Yeah, I think all those are true.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to come to terms with it. And for sure, it can take 20 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sure isn't easy. Yeah, but I would, if you want to answer that, there's investigators you should speak with who are seeing people and getting the reports.
What kind of investigators?
Through MUFON, I believe, has their own department for abductions, for people to contact them. I think also a lot of people saw what happened to the people I was around that whole time and how abused we got by the media and ridiculed, and oh my God, it was brutal. And that maybe that has informed their decision not to be public about it. But I've met quite a few that it's ongoing, and if it has stopped, great. But I just don't believe that's the truth.
Is there a certain like geographical area that it seems to happen more than others? Do they stay away from big cities? Do they only go to like open?
No, it's everywhere.
Rural land.
I think big cities less so, but it's all over the planet. I had a woman from Japan approach me at one of my screenings recently. I mean, this is fascinating, and this is the most rewarding part for me personally. Mm-hmm. Is people approach me at my screenings afterwards, and they say they'll give me a note, or they'll just tell me like, thank you for validating my experience. It's been happening since I was a child. Or that's the most beautiful thing. And I always share it with my crew, because my people I worked with, like, hey, this is the kind of effect you have. We've got stacks of letters and emails from people and yes, this woman from Japan recently approached me. I'm like, oh my God, I mean, I knew it was everywhere. I've met people from China, Japan, all over pretty much every single country at this point. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. The same thing. We think we have borders. This operation doesn't have any. They're covering the entire planet.
Are there any accounts or stories people have told you that just doesn't fit into anything you ever heard? Or like, has there ever been something where someone came to you and be like, look, this is what happened to me, and you were like, whoa, I've never heard of this before? No. Or like any new kind of beings that they describe that you've never heard of? Or
well, yeah, maybe I've heard a few, but it's pretty consistent.
It is.
It's pretty consistent. That's the other thing that's why people started researching it, was the consistency amongst stories, even from people separated by oceans, all across the world, was the consistencies of many things, not just the description of these creatures, but the procedures, the technology. It's
that's all
repetitive.
Consistent.
It's all consistent. So there's a strong body of work. I think it's 90% the same, and then there's 10% that are these outliers that people experiencing reptile-like creatures and this and that. I don't know. But 90% of them are these little 4-footers. You know?
Have you ever asked them or communicated with them, asked them who they were?
I don't think you have the chance to do that. I don't know. You just don't.
Because it seems like there were a lot of people who did ask them that, at least from some of the accounts.
In what position?
The accounts that I've read about in various books of abductees or people that have just ran into these things like randomly in the middle of Colorado or Utah or somewhere. Maybe not all abductees, but at least like having face-to-face encounters with them where they would communicate with them telepathically. I know there was a few of them in Mike Masters' book, Extraterrestrial Model. He lays out at least, I think like at least a half dozen accounts, documented accounts, where people asked them like where they were, who they were, where they were from. You've never talked to anybody who had anything to say about that?
It's just limited. You're limited. I mean, it depends on the individual situation.
Because even Whitley says he talked to the being telepathically, and he asked like how old it was, and it told him it was ancient.
Right. God, I got to talk to Whitley. It's been a while. Oh my God, yeah, that's funny. No, you can. It reminds me, like people say, well, if you're on the spacecraft, like why didn't you get this? It's like, dude, you're thinking about survival. Period. You know, I mean that's the kind of mixed in thing, unless you're under some kind of their anesthetic, which is electrical in nature, by the way. It's difficult to get those questions in because that's not where hasn't been with me. That's not been my primary. Like I would like to survive, you know.
Right. And what about like the little? He talks about these like little like grunty, beefy looking creatures that were like the workhorses, the ones that would like carry you out of the house and like get you into the woods to get elevated up into the spacecraft. Like there was 2 different ones, or 3 different ones. He explained the human looking ones, the little 4-footers, and he explained these other like really little like ogre looking ones that he explained were like the workhorses that would be doing like the labor, the physical labor to like move people.
Oh, I don't think they needed that for me anyway, but yeah, no, I don't remember them at all. Okay. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, Randy, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, man.
This has been fun.
I won't be able to sleep tonight.
You won't?
No.
Why?
Anytime I talk about this stuff, it just ripples for several days.